Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. So, to interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable, or on the Facebook event page for episode 231, Amity, or on the YouTube chat running along this side of the YouTube video. So it's been great to see everyone here tonight. We've got a couple special guests. So without further ado, my name is John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And Robert, say hi.
Hi, Robert Johnson, Waukegan Lodge number 78. Past master, current sitting secretary. Thanks.
Rock on. Juan's working on some IT right now, so I'll skip over Juan. Missing tonight is Mike Hambrick. He's feeling under the weather. So the other host we have to introduce is Jason Richards.
The other host. Hi, that guy coming from Fairfax, Virginia, Jason Richards, past master of Visitation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C., and not able to log into both jurisdictions on Amity at the same time. Just saying.
Feature request.
I'll write a user story for it. You can put it in your Kanban.
You had me at Kanban. All right. Introducing.
Speak agile to me.
Yes. We have Brother Jeremy Barnes. Say hi, and what jurisdiction are you from?
Hey, I'm Jeremy Barnes. I am a past master of Potomac Lodge number 5 in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Worshipful Barnes. And also we have Michael Radigan. Say hi. What jurisdiction are you from?
How are you? I am from New York, New York, and I am the senior warden of Independent Royal Arch Lodge number 2 in the 1st Manhattan District.
Very cool. Awesome. Juan, mic check. 1 2 1 2. How are we doing over there?
Doing very good here in sunny Kissimmee, Florida. Once upon over at your service, host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast, and a brother of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80.
Very
in
cool.
Kissimmee, Florida.
Awesome.
I guess I don't need this.
Looking good. Looking good. All right. A few items from Masonic news. Wanted to cover this week is, as we kind of predicted last week, where we've had a recent hurricane come through North Carolina, and the MSA did an appeal relief. We have South Carolina doing a relief appeal through the Masonic Services Association of North America. So if you're willing to help out, there's brothers both in North and South Carolina. Go to msana.com, I believe, and go donate. So as we mentioned last time, the way they did this last year, I couldn't get details as of yet, but hopefully they follow suit in the same way they did last year, where 100% of the donations went directly to support instead. So they basically covered the overhead themselves out of pocket and not building in overhead into the donation. So that was definitely a worthy cause. But either way, there's still a lot of brothers and families without power in the Carolinas. So definitely check that out and help them out. Also, out of South Carolina, another piece of news coming straight from Chris Hodap's blog was an article I wanted to bring up because I just find this whole issue fascinating. The town of Lexington, South Carolina, is seeking to condemn the temple of Lexington Lodge 152 by using eminent domain for the sole purpose of constructing a parking lot for a proposed hotel across the street. So I find this whole debacle fascinating because there's a lot of issues going back and forth between this hotel, the town, and the lodge. Basically, the town was offering through eminent domain, hey, we'll buy you out for $300,000, of which the lodge said to move everything and to build a new building of equivalent value would be about $1 million. And the town said, how about $300,000? To which they're like, still not interested. So the worst case scenario is that the lodge could then just condemn the building and pay that $300,000 asking price and just say, sorry, eminent domain, you're done. Apparently, there are talks between the town, the lodge, and the hotel to try to work out a deal. But I just find it very interesting that this is really impacting the fraternity in a very weird way. Any thoughts on this? Anyone can chime in.
Wow, that's just interesting. I you don't hear of eminent domain being used against lodges very often.
I know, right?
We had it happen here to Bethel Commandery number 36, which is in Palatine, Illinois. They had one of the most historic buildings in Palatine, Illinois, and they basically claimed eminent domain, took it over, and then I'm not sure what they built there. They built something that was newer, and they pushed them into renting a bank vault, like a bank building, and then they were there until they got to build a new commandery. They got a pretty sweet deal. Like, I think the city gave them they own the building for $1 a year for like 100 years or something.
Crazy. So it's not unheard of, but I'm just fascinated with how this whole thing is going down. So I know I'll be following it just to see.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I think it's crappy.
Yeah.
I just don't think that. I don't have, like, I am not a constitutional scholar by any means. I just know what feels right, and I just don't think that feels right. Something like, allowing a British soldier to occupy your house just because they can just
it's
your house just because.
It's an interesting thing, though. It speaks, and I don't know the situation, so I don't want to make it sound like something's not happening that should be. But I think it speaks very clearly to how we as Masons need to be in our community and part of it. Not to say that, hey, let's stock the city council with Masons, but I think if everyone knew exactly what was going on there and the good that came out of it, they might have thought twice before saying that this is the place I want to turn into a parking lot.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't argue and say, well, we need to knock down this children's hospital for eminent domain for this hotel parking lot, right? That wouldn't look so good. But Mason's lodge that's not very active. Come on, I'm not saying they are. I'm probably because they've been pushing back. They might be very active, but you see the comparison. No politician would go out of their way to say, let's condemn the children's hospital for a parking lot. Mm-hmm.
Great point.
I didn't say anything, but I'm with Jeremy 100%. I was thinking that if this of course, this is not advice that we can give that particular lodge, but this can be a great example for other lodges that are watching, that if they are managing their lodges appropriately and they're not suffering from the decline that many lodges are, then the chances of them having people of influence within positions of power is going to be greater. And unlike Jeremy, I say, yeah, let's just pump brothers into the city council. Why not? It's the kind of man I would like to be in a voting position.
I think it's also one, I'll say just the counterpart, which is as you get more active in the community, you probably get more members. So if you're suffering from a lack of members, maybe that's one way to help fix it.
Yeah.
Masonry isn't the Rotary. Sorry, somebody had to say that.
Funny stuff.
No, I completely agree.
But we're almost the Lions, except not really. Okay, that's all we got from Masonic news this week. Stay tuned for more updates on that as we get them. Let's move into this week's topic, which is Amity. So, wanted to let brothers Jeremy and Michael give a chance to use this platform. I know you guys have been on Whence Came You in the past, but for those who haven't heard it or aren't familiar with it, what is your app called Amity? What does it do? How does it work? What's it all about?
So at its core, Amity is about connecting Freemasons. Michael and I think we both fall into the camp of traditionalist Masons. And so neither of us is in a place where we say, hey, you should bring your phone into lodge and, all this sort of thing. And while things like internet lodges are great and are making waves, the thing that we lose if we avoid technology is getting to meet together in person. Right. So to me, if I can use my phone and technology on my phone to help find other Masons and interact with them in person, that's a great thing. And that's really what we're trying to do. So at its core, Amity helps you find other lodges, find other meetings, find other Masons. And the easiest thing really that you can do with it is open it up, say, find lodges near me, and find whatever's going on in the area. So it's got a couple other bells and whistles along with it, but that's the core of it. Help you find a place where you can go find other Masons.
Michael, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm exactly what Jeremy said. One of the things that I really had a passion about with doing this in this project and what it really has done is it's kind of really made people who are involved a lot more productive. I'm really into team building, in my profession and in lodge. And as we build as our strong teams, we get more done. We become more industrious. We become better Masons, and that's something that the rest of the world kind of had, and we didn't. Everybody in social media is kind of thrown together, and we decided to kind of create something that was going to bring people together, that was necessary, because the traditional means that we have, we're kind of aware that they weren't completely always up to date. And that needed to be fixed. And it's certainly something that has been discussed year after year, even from our leadership. And it seemed as though everybody was looking for this answer. And, we decided to work hard at it.
So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball over to Juan, just because I like mixing things up. Juan, why don't you give us a little primer of what recognition and travel requires when you're doing things from a Masonic conduct. So, because there are people who may not be Masons yet who are watching, why would I need something like this app? What's this whole point about traveling and making sure I'm finding the right lodge?
That's a good question, and I would like to put in the minds of people religion. If you pay attention, there's a good number of the citizens of the United States who are Christian. But Christian is a very broad, very general description of these people's beliefs. Now, you have Episcopalians, you have Methodists, and you have Catholics, and you have all these different varieties of Christians throughout the country. If you were a Methodist and you wanted to travel to a different city, you wanted to see if there's a Methodist church there that you can attend. And even though Freemasonry is not a religion, it is an organization that at its core, it's broadly described as Freemasonry, but there are different jurisdictions, there are different ways of practicing Masonry, and throughout the years, there have been some fissures and some changes that have generated different groups that are considered, or they call themselves, Freemasons. So if I were to go to another country on vacation, I want to make sure that if I'm going to visit one of these lodges, Masonic lodges, I want to have the certainty that this is a lodge that is recognized by the organization that granted me admittance, that this is one that is regular in its practice, so that I'm not going to be exposed to something that goes against my commitments as a Mason. And so having Amity it could be pretty much described as having that permission from your organized section of this order to visit a similar or even a different one, but that there's some kind of agreement, there's kind of friendliness between the two. So one is not infringing on the teachings of the other. It's not violating on it, some of the commitments that the other organization have. So having amity between these segments of the organization is important to be information that we're aware of. Last thing I want to do is sit somewhere where I'm not welcome or where it's going to cause me trouble.
Right. A follow-up question, Juan, is previous to this app being built, how would one ensure they are going to the right place, going to the right lodge?
Perfect. I'm going to show you an example that I've used in the past, and Amity has quickly become the efficient and updated replacement of it. Give me 1 second. Let me mute my camera. There you go. This book right here, it's called, this is the list of lodges Masonic. This is a version from 2014 that right off the bat tells you that this book is not current. I keep this one because I have tons of notes in it. So I have all these little earmarks, post-it notes to make my own adjustments to record where I've been. I want to keep track of the dates of the lodges that I've gone to visit and speak at. But just by that little number right there, you can tell that although it's very helpful, it's something that you'll have to replace every year. And I'll give an example of something that happened mid-year that would have caused some kind of conflict. And it's a recent, there was pretty much a separation or give me another word for that, rupture between Grand Lodges. Yeah, so there was this separation where the Grand Lodge of Florida and the Grand Lodge of Cuba didn't agree on something. So they decided not to recognize one another or break recognition. So brothers from one jurisdiction couldn't come and sit in the lodge of another. Brothers who didn't know, perhaps they didn't read the edict from the Grand Master, they could have inadvertently visited Cuba and sat in a lodge and somehow violated their commitment to their Grand Lodge and violated some of the rules and get in some trouble. So unless they were connected to what the Grand Lodge puts out, that they receive an actual printout or they've been going to lodge, they would not have heard the news that Grand Lodge of Cuba was not in amity with the Grand Lodge of Florida. Now that was ratified just this August. So 8 months into the new year, for the brothers who have one of these from 2018 that says that the Grand Lodge of Florida does not recognize the Grand Lodge of Cuba, well, they might be missing out. They could have gone to Cuba or have Cuban brothers sit in lodge with them and miss out because they don't have the actual current information of which Grand Lodges recognize one another.
Thank you, Juan. That's a great description of how you would ensure that. In the past, I'm going to ask the brothers that have built Amity, how are you vetting? How are you determining all of this back end stuff? I mean, if the book has to be updated every year or as quickly as possible, how are you guys ensuring the state is?
So that's a really good question. And so we really want to be very clear to everybody that we are not the authority in any of this. What we did was we created a system that allows everybody to maintain all of that in real time. So for instance, when that change happened in Florida, Grand Secretary Lynn could go in there and then by a click of a button, he could hit, and everybody who had that app in Florida instantly saw, okay, now recognition has changed if they go and search in that area. And so it is also very important to bring up that we do need the help of the Grand Lodges, specifically to check through, this data when it comes to the recognition between grand jurisdictions. It is very important, but it's in real time and can be changed whenever necessary.
I'll add on to that quickly. Juan, just to talk a little bit more about that book you have. One of the challenges is that's just one book. right? It's one version, and it has caveats and additions in the footnotes. We've got 285 Grand Lodges in Amity, and each one of those Grand Lodges can have a separate and distinct opinion about every other one of those Grand Lodges. And if you think about it that way, then 285 times 285 is a little over 80,000 possible permutations of who thinks what about whom, right? And so at a minimum, you need 285 books that all may say different things. And so you can see how it can get really confusing and quite frankly, really unwieldy for traditional methods of understanding how to handle this type of information. Those folks that are watching that know about databases and other technology like that are probably very familiar with the fact that this is pretty easy if you have scripting or if you have some technology to help parse through that. And that's exactly what we've brought to bear. One of our little taglines is bringing modern technology to the world's oldest fraternity. And in a situation like this, where you literally have over 80,000 possible answers, and you only really care about the one that matters to you, I think this is a critical, leap forward for the fraternity.
I've thought for years of visualization from like a linked graph, like a node link analysis graph would be amazing to see who recognizes who and who doesn't, and just to kind of see all these different permutations of, I don't know, just it's the nerd in me would love to visualize that to see what those 81,000 node connections look like. But
so I agree with you entirely, and I'm going to take it one step further for the sake of conversation. My even money is that out of those 285 Grand Lodges, on average, you typically recognize maybe 200-ish. So there's 85 that you would call clandestine, not counting, of course, the other 89 Grand Lodges in New York that are definitely clandestine. These are ones that somebody who is regular and recognizes. My bet is that if you played 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with recognition, you could probably get into any Grand Lodge in the world if you were allowed to hop.
Well, that's it. Because there's a future podcast that I want to do about lodge economics, and we'll talk about that when we do that. But part of the theory there is can you find the lodge or Grand Lodge that has the maximum utility, right? What's the one Grand Lodge that if you join it is like the key to the universe, right? The one Grand Lodge to rule them all, that recognizes the most, so you can get the best value,
best bang for your dues paying buck. Yes,
but
the best bang for your whole $50.
That's right.
I just think about it. It was interesting before Amity, and I've likened this before, as like I'll just talk about firearms for a second, right? Like if you have a concealed carry permit in your state, there's an app out there that's really great, and it's all about reciprocity. So it tells me where my permit is good, and then I can also click on those states, and I can see what the laws are in each one of those states and all the caveats. And I thought, man, they should do this for lodges. And then Amity came out. So yeah, it's awesome.
That's definitely filling a need then.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Real quick, for those who aren't Masons, and maybe even a bunch of Masons, quite frankly, one of the awkward things that happens in Freemasonry is that there are many times multiple Grand Lodges in a given jurisdiction, which strictly speaking by the rules is not allowed unless those Grand Lodges have a treaty to share their jurisdiction. In the United States, we see that often with Prince Hall, where you've got 2 Grand Lodges in a jurisdiction. But one of the more commonly known ones is actually Italy, right? You've got the Grand Lodge of Italy and the Grand Orient of Italy. And the awkwardness is most American Grand Lodges recognize, I believe it's the Grand Lodge of Italy, whereas the United Grand Lodge of England and many European lodges recognize the Grand Orient of Italy. And so, here you go, you have an invitation from someone, people that you recognize might be in this lodge, and the question happens, well, do you go in? Do you not go in? Or what if you go to England and both, they're recognized Italian Grand Lodges there? Does that mean you can go into their lodge? And this is the awkwardness where Grandmasters sort of take their magic wand and say, life is good, it's people. But these are the challenges that we don't really pay attention to because we don't have the ability to pay attention to them. And that's why we think that this is so much fun because we now have something that can help show that information and make it useful.
And you're going to run into those conflicts, and that's what I think is interesting. Is there might be some apprehension to use your app because it's going to expose things that were already there. Technology can only expose things that are already part of the human condition. It's just, do we deal with it or do we sweep it under the rug and call it administrative error, right? So you guys are providing a service, whether or not people realize it, that it's really going to help us do better with our data stewardship of these types of records. To that point, my next question is something that we've been mentioning in some of the Masonic news segments this year. Tell me what happened at this Conference of Grand Masters conference up in the Northeast. I heard there was a little bit of confusion / falling out. Let's set the record straight. What happened?
Well, so Masonry prevailed and miscommunication was the culprit. So that's basically really what happened. There was discussion about, us and wanting to possibly take personal data from Grand Lodges, which doesn't even really help us. And that wasn't the case, what we were ever requesting or doing. And word was spread that was the case. But since then, all has been basically come to a good conclusion that it was all miscommunication, and things should be going out. There should be actually a public announcement coming out shortly regarding that. We're sort of waiting, for that to happen.
So here's a question for you, Mike. What do you all say, or how do you all approach those Masons who are, for lack of a better term, technologically averse, and very skeptical that one, it's not more than just your app doesn't provide any value, but two, you might be storing member data, or hackers are going to get in there, and we should keep it locked up in the secretary's desk.
Right.
Like how do you all handle that kind of interaction?
So the man that moves mountains does it by carrying away small stones. and basically it really just has to, it's all relationship building. That's really what it all comes down to. And, when I call somewhere that a New Yorker does not sound familiar to them, it may take a while, and it may take a while for them to understand who we are, what our purpose is, understand the security that's involved, that we really do have the expertise regarding that. And usually it works out well. For the most part, when people don't know about things, myself included, at times, I've been very benefited to have this experience and the knowledge that comes along with it. And it's all growth. So that's the way we look at it. I have many times just had to say, okay, sir, hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. And it turns out that oftentimes they do talk to us shortly thereafter. So that's the way we kind of try to have to look at things and keep, positive and keep plugging along. And, we're serving a lot of people, and a lot of people are happy. So we try to focus mainly on them and whoever else wants to have more focus from us. And that's how we kind of tackle it.
So I'll add to that, Jason. I think the folks you're talking about fall into a couple of buckets. One is the bucket of, oh crap, you want my location and what are you going to do with it? And the answer there is typically, well, we have the ability for you to use the app without giving away your location, right? I'm one of those people that I tend to be really skeptical about some of that stuff. And so I build for people like me. The other side, which I think gets more to what you were saying, is the folks that say, I'll say I have a flip phone, or, I don't want to use this sort of technology at all. And, quite frankly, there's not much that we can do about that. They're certainly welcome to have that opinion. And if you want to live, in a box and not communicate with the world, there can be some benefits and there can be some drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks is not being able to use Amity. And then for the people sort of in the middle who say, what are you going to do with my data? oh my God, I don't want to give you any personal information. Somebody might find out I'm a Mason. The first question I tend to ask is, well, what's the end of your domain name of your email address, right? Because if it's Gmail, Yahoo, Microsoft, Apple, me, any of those big names, they probably already know you're a Mason. Facebook, etc. They've got enough data on you.
That's why
exactly. And I mean, it's really funny, because people go, okay, well, are you going to keep my data separate? Well, I mean, if you trust Gmail with your email, they don't have a separate server for you. And, I think a lot of folks don't think about the security that goes into these applications and how normal it is to do it the right way, if you know what you're doing, quite frankly.
So you said you've had some positive feedback. Do you have any success stories you want to share about some brothers you've helped out, or some feedback you've gotten about the app?
I'll tell you my funniest success story. We haven't said it, but Michael's the guy that makes us look good. He's a New York City firefighter, and the funniest story to me was, I think, would you call down to New Zealand and talk to the ladies that work on staff in the Grand Lodge, and left a message for the Grand Secretary, and a couple days later, when he called back to get on the horn with the Grand Secretary, the Grand Secretary says, "You have no idea what you did to these ladies. They've been talking all, ever since about the New York City firefighter that called, and I knew I had to talk to you."
It's funny.
So here's a question for you guys. So John and I are systems engineers, more or less. And so we're all about process and feedback and development cycles. We won't bore the rest of our listeners with what your sprint cycles look like. But when it comes to feedback,
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes. When it comes to user feedback, enhancements, that features that users bring to you all, is there a good way for folks to suggest features to you or give you other feedback about the app?
Absolutely. Support@coperi.com is our goes into our sort of central ticket database, and we work really hard to get back to everybody that sends something in. But I will tell you two things. One, if you're wondering how many people are on this team, you're looking at both of them. And two, that means that everything that gets to us, we see, and if it's a feature request, we put it in the system. We use Redmine for ticketing, and if you know anything about software development, it may not get done tomorrow, but it's on the list, and it's going to get prioritized and worked every time we come around for a release cycle and say what's on deck next.
Very cool. We're just nerding out, Jason and I, in the chat room.
Just to keep in mind too, we are not Google. Yes,
No.
There are some brothers who think that, and so
Facebook just hired 20,000 people. Why can't you?
Yeah.
Because Masonry doesn't pay very well.
The goal is you have to verb it, right? So instead of just saying like, "Oh, we'll just go Google it," let's just go Amity if I'm, allowed in this lodge. Just go Amity it. See, that's
actually, that leads us nicely into the next topic, which is you don't even need your phone anymore.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
What?
I spent all this time setting up the app on my phone. So what are you guys cooking up now?
I've been telling people that we're really working hard to accelerate the pace of change, and we know that it was sort of an earth-shaking thing when we said you don't need to read a book anymore to find out who you recognize. Now you can have all the information in real time at your fingertips. But it didn't take us long to say, well, gee, why do we even need the phone, right? We have virtual assistants now. Why can't we just ask something whether or not I can go to a lodge? And to that end, what we did, and we're literally waiting on Amazon for the final approval notice, which I'm expecting anytime. But we are integrated with Alexa now, and just waiting for the skill to become public.
That's right. You heard it here first. So this is something that these guys have been cooking up for a while.
Exciting.
And really tempting, Murphy's Law.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna try and do some live demos here, and it's gonna fail miserably. So just expect that up front.
All live demos do.
There's nothing
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous.
doing it live. But yeah, so I've hooked up my little Echo Dot here to the mixer board and set it up with my account. They kind of give me the little.
Just so you know,
Is it a real Echo or your like fake Echo knockoff that you
It's
have?
the real thing, but
Okay.
I was telling these guys in the green room, I can't call it Alexa because my oldest daughter's name is Alyssa, and every time the kids run through the house, they trigger all my smart speakers and they start playing playlists I don't even heard of. So I had to change all my wake words to computer.
We're going with Star Trek.
Yeah.
that's the best. I'm gonna put in we're doing it live. Like it's gonna be in the podcast version. You're gonna hear that. We're doing it live.
So here we go. Here's a couple things.
Live from Virginia. It's Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's right. Nice. I like that. Let's see if we can get this thing working. Computer, what time is it?
It's 10:39 p.m.
Okay, so we do have audio, so that's working. Computer, open Amity.
Amity at your service. How can I help?
Are there any lodges near Fairfax, Virginia?
There are 124 lodges within 25 miles of Fairfax, Virginia. The closest one is the Patriot Lodge number 1957, which is 0.78 miles away.
You were practicing that.
Couldn't be a better can demo. Let's see what else we have. What else should I?
And to be clear, by the way, for everyone who's watching, even though it is a demo and it's not technically live because Amazon hasn't released it, this is hitting off of our live database and it's getting real information.
Yes. None of this has been pre-scripted, pre-recorded. None of it. This is actually working off of Amity's database. So yeah. So thank you for making that clear. And again, we're days away from having this accessible for any brother who has an Amity account to link it up. So why don't you describe what they will have to do to set this up once this thing goes live?
Sure. So the basic answer is the first thing you need, as you said, is an Amity account. So you'll download the app, install it, and set up an account. Basically, a little bit of information, your name and information about your lodge, your Grand Lodge. Are you a Master Mason, et cetera, like that. There are some things that you can do as an unverified member, and there are some things that you can only do as a verified member, just because it involves, hey, where are their meetings, things like that. And we don't want to break any of the security rules that we've set up in the app. Once you set it up with Alexa, though, it'll prompt you to link your account. So you'll go into your say again.
Time, right? Just
that one time. And so you'll as you set it up in the Amazon Alexa app, it'll bring you to the Amity login screen. You'll put in your Amity credentials, and then we'll do all the OAuth switching behind the scenes, and you'll be good to go, and you can start asking Alexa questions.
All right, let's try another one, just for kicks and grins. Let's see. Computer, ask Amity if a brother from Potomac Lodge number 5 can visit my lodge.
Your Grand Secretary is the final authority on questions of recognition.
Legalese.
To my records, both of your Grand Lodges recognize each other, and Potomac Lodge number 5 has a valid charter under the Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C. Don't forget to confirm the visiting brother's identity and to perform a trial on the proper degree.
A little long, but I like it.
That is so perfect, though, because you know what you did there was
you covered your butts.
Yeah, but not just that. There's that guy who would be like, yeah, but they didn't ask this. It didn't mention this. I think you hit it all. The only thing it didn't mention was the test oath, which,
Can we get the Tyler's oath?
This is great.
Yes.
Tyler's oath.
Computer, have Amity read off the Tyler's oath.
Well, so it's interesting. I do want to interject here for a second on something serious. One of the things that we have always believed is that technology can help instill processes, right? And I think if you were to get a few glasses of whiskey in with most Grand Secretaries, one of their annoyances is that people are no longer using the processes that help them be effective in their roles. right? So I look at the Grand Lodge as sort of a traffic cop, right? Do I need to know why my Grand Lodge does or does not recognize Cuba? No, there are people whose job is to figure out whether or not that's appropriate. And I really appreciate it because I don't have to worry about whether or not I recognize 285 Grand Lodges. I just need to go ask, do we or don't we? Right? So those sorts of things are important for a Grand Lodge to do. And one of them is what we were just talking about, right? What do you have to do when someone visits your lodge? A lot of people just say, well, you know, can you do the step and the grip and okay, great, you're in. And they totally forget that they should really check the guy's ID and make sure that he's actually the person listed on the dues card.
Absolutely.
Right? And then look at the dues card and figure out if it's the current year. Right. So we can't forget those stuff. And that's why the disclaimer's in there.
So I'm hearing just don't install an echo in every lodge building and just rely on that and skip the secretary altogether and skip vetting altogether.
Yeah, totally. Well, you know, that leads us to the fact that we did have a little bit of fun with Alexa as well. You know, she got kind of close to saying some stuff as Juan said, well, I don't know if I wanted to read the Tyler stuff, but you want to ask her whether or not she's a Mason?
You know, let's try that. Computer, open Amity.
Amity at your service. How can I help?
Are you a Mason?
Can't you tell by the way I'm standing?
Oh,
that was the more that was the funnier response of the two. Actually, I think we might have 3 or 4 in there.
So, yeah, so these guys put in a couple Easter eggs. We're not going to let them all out. So when it goes live, you'll have to go ask her that same question as well to see if you can get some other responses out of her.
My favorite one, and you know, it's odds as to whether or not we get it. So I'll just say it is. I put in my petition, but they keep telling me I have to have fingers.
Yeah, don't quit your day job. It's really.
Yeah.
It's going to be maybe a couple weeks before someone lodges an official complaint saying that you're advocating for women in Freemasonry.
Oh, sure.
I will remind them that they can change the voice selection on their Alexa.
Hey, I got a question for you because you talked about and you just joked about lady lodges. There was a question that somebody posed and they said the actual question in its entirety was, why not open the app up to other obediences, not sketchy pyramid scheme ones, but others that happen to not be recognized by regular Grand Lodges? So if you don't want to answer that, my question is, have you thought about putting together something else similar to Amity to help out some other organizations?
So I'll say a couple things. And sorry, Michael, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm gonna jump in for a second. The basic answer, in my personal opinion, is there is a Grand Lodge in Amity that is unrecognized by everyone who is a member of Amity. It's not a specific one. Out of 285 that we have in Amity, I guarantee you there's somebody in there you don't recognize. Right? Now, at the moment, we don't have any female Grand Lodges in there. You know, but the core question is the same. Do we want to take the time and figure out which one of the 90 Grand Lodges in New York City alone are the ones that we want to have in the app? Not necessarily, but the app's technology is built such that you see what you're allowed to see, and we tell you what the recognition status is, and we can do that. I mean, you know, to Juan's point, you could put in the Episcopal Church, and guess what? You know, a Mason can't go to lodge at an Episcopal Church service, and we can tell you you can't visit it. You know, so it can go as far and wide as you want.
I would just compliment the same thing and just say that, you know, certainly we believe that people are more productive, you know, being around like-minded people. And I think that this sort of technology could certainly help a multitude of organizations, you know, in searching for things that are necessary, as well as bringing people together throughout the world. One of the things is like, you know, not that we're working with them, but think of like Habitat for Humanity or something of that nature, where you're helping people, you know, and it's a closed group, and yet there could be people coming from all over the world in different areas that aren't connected. And yet if one person was there a week before and they were connected, it's a lot more intimate than Facebook, and a lot more can be done in productivity wise.
I'll also say that as we look forward, there are a not short list of appendant bodies that could also benefit from this. So when we look at expanding Amity, saying, hey, you have a membership in the Scottish Rite, or you have a membership in the Shrine, and it's the same question. I was at the Conference of Prince Hall Grand Masters earlier this year, and one of the huge topics of discussion was the Eastern Star. And the vast majority of the ladies there were really frustrated that there was recognition between the Grand Lodges in their state, and there wasn't recognition between the Eastern Star chapters, and even though those appendant bodies, you now have to say, well, are they recognized by their Grand Lodge, and then what happens? The recognition question gets really complicated really fast, and I think that's something that we can help with.
I have never heard of that issue. Like independent OES chapters within a state don't recognize each other.
So grand chapters. So for example, and I don't know this for sure, but I'll just pull one out of the air. The Grand Lodge of Denver and of Colorado and the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Colorado may recognize each other, but the Grand Chapter of the Order of Eastern Star in Colorado, in Prince Hall and not Prince Hall, don't recognize each other.
Gotcha. How bizarre is that? Yeah, I could.
Well, that's a similar, Robert. That's a similar issue with other appendant bodies, though.
Yeah.
Well, and we just saw actually, and I saw it on Chris Hodap's blog. We just saw that the Knights Templar recognized their counterpart in Prince Hall, which is a great thing. But again, it's 2018, and here we are going, wow, we're still figuring some of this stuff out. Imagine the groups that are out there that we don't know about. We said it in the green room, but more than once, Michael and I have looked at each other and kind of said, wow, we thought this was just recognition, but like there be monsters, it gets weird real fast.
All right. Any other social media questions? Robert, Jason?
I think you answered it already. One guy had asked, is Prince Hall Lodge or Prince Hall Lodges within the app? So I think you already said they were.
So I'll make a caveat there just for clarity. One of the biggest challenges with Prince Hall is a lot of their Grand Lodges don't list their lodges online. And so we've been working individually with Prince Hall Grand Lodges, but it's sometimes hit or miss. Like Michael and I have both been trying to get a hold of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge for Washington State for a year. And we've had a couple folks from that Grand Lodge write in and say, hey, can you add my lodge? And we can't even prove that their lodge is a valid one under their Grand Lodge, much less try and figure out what the other lodges are. So, the vast majority of Prince Hall lodges, I believe, are in the app, but there are some jurisdictions where we just need information. And frankly, if folks that are watching can put us in touch with the Grand Lodge, or, poke their Grand Lodge and say, please reach out to these guys, we would love to work with them and love to make sure that their status is reflected and their lodges are reflected correctly in the app.
One of the things that you said there is you can't verify. And I think that's really a key point. We had some people, and I'm sure you guys have heard it all the time, you alluded to the security issue and, are these people real Masons? Just the other day, there was somebody in the Winding Stairs group who said he complained about something and said, you guys probably don't even vet anybody coming into this group as a real Mason and blah, 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 blah. And what I think is interesting, right, is you've made mention on several occasions that you guys check with grand secretaries. They're the people who are really in control. They can go in and change statuses and stuff. And I think,
and sometimes they unverify everyone in their grand jurisdiction.
I wasn't going to say that.
Oopsie.
No, as Michael said, brotherhood has prevailed, and it's a joke and not an insult at this point.
That's good. I'm glad it's all straightened out, because really it was pretty awesome. The way everybody kind of came together and rallied up and wanted to dispel the miscommunications. So, and
we really appreciate that, guys. It was humbling for us to realize that we put together something that folks actually like and use and want to see continue.
Absolutely. It was one of those gems that kind of keeps you going, it's and that's what this has been, just hurdle after hurdle, but it's been enjoyment all along.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too that it's human nature. You have some people who are dominated by their cynical ways of thinking, and I've been on the Masonic Roundtable for what, 3 years, on the Winding Stairs for 4. How long have we been doing this?
We have been doing the Masonic Roundtable for 4.5 years, Juan.
Oh dear God!
It's actually more than 4.5 years. It's
It really is.
yeah, it's 4 years and 7 months.
All right, so I've been doing this, and I've been doing video, and like I've been trying to do a lot of things in Masonry. I've traveled around the country, speaking in lodges and stuff. And there always is someone who comes out and like either attacks me for what I do or doubts of my sincerity, my love for the craft. And like, you brothers are not going to be spared from that. Like, you will come across people who are going to think that your modus operandi is to take everyone's information and then just like completely do something nefarious with it. And I hate that attitude in people when they don't inform themselves well enough to recognize who is behind the Winding Stairs, who is behind Amity, who is behind the Masonic Roundtable. Like, these are brothers who, just like you, have been vetted, found worthy and well qualified to be members of a lodge, and are active members of the fraternity. So I think that, I'm glad that you've come to this program and that you spent some time with Robert in Whence Came You, because it gives an opportunity for brothers who might only see you as a internet company with no face and no name trying to do something that they feel is questionable. Like, now you've you've shown your face, you've spoken with brothers, and people get a great sense of the kind of men you are by the way in which you comport yourselves here in other public arenas. So I'm glad that this is happening, but just from me to you, considering my experience, focus on what you're doing and continue to provide value for the people who are embracing that value, for people who are finding the worth in what you're putting out there, and give little value, little credence to the people who are just succumbing to their cynicism and their toxicity and trying to stop you from doing good. I commend you for what you're doing, brothers.
Thank you for that, Juan. It's the man in the arena is absolutely what you're speaking of. And the truth is too, I have discussions about this all the time in Masonry in general, and I tend to believe that even years ago, ancient Freemasonry, they still had people within it like this, because for the most part, it's that duality, right? It's learning how to focus and to actually, repeat something kind to someone when they're coming at you with that energy. It's our time to kind of work and become better men ourselves, and that's one thing that those people can continue to do for us, and I'm sure they've done for you, for all of you, on this panel here. That's really what makes us better Masons, by constantly being challenged, by people constantly questioning us. It just makes us better.
So
now you can see which one of us is the historian.
Two last quick questions from social media. Can you describe the attendance feature in your app? Like, how to use that? What's that for?
Sure, and actually, this is something that we're going to be changing pretty significantly. So it's worth a quick note. Right now, in order to check into a meeting, which can be a lodge meeting, or for example, we had a code for Texas Masonicon last weekend, or I guess it was 2 weekends ago. Which, by the way, plug for the guys at Fort Worth Lodge number 148. It was a great event. But so as you can see from the app that's on the screen right now, you put a code into the app, and that loads a meeting, and then you hit a button and you're checked in. The challenge with that is you have to have somebody to create the code. So right now you need to have a lodge administrator in your lodge create a code for your lodge. We're working on an update right now that's going to completely eliminate the codes and allow you to check into basically any lodge anywhere. And the lodge admin will then say, okay, I can certify that you were actually at the meeting and certify the attendance. So it's going to sort of turn the current process on its head. But Juan, this gets to something you said earlier. Part of our goal is to be those post-its that you have in your list of lodges, and allow you to document the lodges that you've been to, and even take notes about what you did there, who you met there, and things like that. So we want to be in a position where you're not just visiting lodges, but you're sort of creating your own Masonic passport in the background.
The digital Masonic passport. So I think that should be like, once you launch Amity, like that's like a thing. You just click on it, and then you got to do. Oh, I got so many. I'm going to send you ideas. It's going to be amazing.
So if you want to go down an interesting rabbit hole, we're trying to not be Facebook, where we need 20,000 people to monitor all the crap that everybody's posting. And at the end of the day, I think there's an interesting question to be had of, well, did this lodge do an interesting program? Do they have an interesting character? Michael and I have talked a lot about sort of crowdsourced Freemasonry. And that doesn't mean that, hey, it's like blockchain and the crowd will decide whether or not you're a Mason. But what it does mean is, for those of us who like to go visit other lodges and see other places, understanding which ones are the amazing lodges in the area that, if there are 20 meeting that night in England, and you should pick one of the 20, you should know that information. And I think we have the ability to start to collect that and show it to people, but do it in a way where we're not promoting the idea of negative reviews, because that's not what this is about. We shouldn't be on here to bash other people in the craft, but we do want to help the great ones bubble up for the 1 year term that they're master.
So Yelp for free.
And I would just add that, the crowdsourcing is really also what has made us successful, is help from the brethren, from everywhere, and updating information and sharing with us. And let's be honest, that is sort of where we are now in present day, right? Everything now is being crowdsourced. You look at Uber, you look at Via, you look at Lyft, people, and especially a big discussion in many of the Grand Lodges is, what do we do for the younger generation? I have 2 teenage sons. They're going to be men now, 16 and 18. So, they're completely engaged in technology. This is something that is certainly, for the younger generation. It's fresh, and this is something that I feel is helping the craft, administrative wise, as well as will bring in that younger generation.
Awesome. Well, guys, this has been a fantastic conversation, but we should start wrapping things up. I want to go around and ask all the other hosts to put their final thoughts and shameless plugs together. And we'll start with Robert for the end of the show. Hi, Robert.
Hey, fella. So I'm going to use my time. I want to ask one quick question, just yes or no, and then if it's coming. Somebody asked, is it coming for the Google Home device?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And Siri.
Excellent. So Siri and Google Home is coming. If you guys heard that in the YouTube chat, I asked. This was so great to talk to you. Again, I think I got even more information about, now in this interview with you guys than we did on the last time we talked. And I love that you guys didn't lose steam when you had some rough spots. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to everybody else out there who uses your app and who sees it for what it is, and really appreciates it, that you guys persevered and you guys pushed through it. And it means everything, really. We talk about huge names in Masonry and like programs and things. This is something that's going to go down like in 50 or 60 years. If John is correct, we won't be around, but they'll be like, man, they gave it one hell of a try. But
I hope I'm wrong.
I think regardless of what happens in the future, we look back at these things like, oh, they had this thing called List of Lodges, and then it was totally replaced by, they embraced the technology, and we had this app that was killer. I just think it's a really good move forward. It's the right step. It's the logical step. And I think it takes somebody really special in Freemasonry anyway to take something that works in the outside and bring it inside to into the fraternity. So often we're just completely negative to that. We had no problem when we were the forefront of everything that was progressive and the outside looked at us. But now we don't want to let the outside influence us because tradition or whatever. But kudos to you guys in breaking down that wall and really making something that works. I really appreciate it. If you guys like Masonic podcasts, you listeners out there, check out Whence Came You, 9:30 Sunday nights. And probably a couple shorter episodes coming because I've got to get ready for Grand Lodge sessions coming up next week. So if you're down in Illinois, come see me in Grand Lodge sessions. I'll be walking around, not doing anything in particular besides socializing and whatnot.
And visiting the Amity booth.
Are you guys going to be there?
I will be there. Michael, unfortunately, has work he's got to do. But yeah, I'll see you there.
Well, some people have to save lives.
It's true.
Work.
This guy runs
I'll
into
come
fires.
by.
I don't get it, but we're excited.
I'm gonna come by and I'll bring you a scotch.
Nice.
All right.
Very cool. Thank you, Robert. One final.
All right. This was a lot of fun. I'm very glad that you brothers were able to join us. Super pumped up about Alexa. Sorry, never mind. She thought I was talking to her right now. So it's really exciting. I'm glad that we had a chance to have this conversation. I know I spoke with one of you a couple of months ago, but I was rushing out and I couldn't like pay a lot of attention at the time. So I'm glad we got an opportunity to talk tonight. It's a lot of work. I'm sure that what you're doing and what shows up publicly is just a fraction of the amount of work that you guys are putting. So I congratulate you on doing something it's very valuable to the brothers out there. So as I say goodnight, I'm a little flustered because I dropped my phone a minute ago. I say goodnight. I remind brothers who are watching, who've heard, enrollment for Applied Freemasonry's course is open. So go to freemasonryart.com and check it out. We have video, audio, quizzes, all kinds of stuff to help brothers apply Freemasonry to their life. The window is open until I think it's the 2nd of October. So go to freemasonryart.com and sign up. Once we close that, I don't allow anybody else in so that I can focus on providing as much value to the brothers that are in as possible. And I would love for you brothers to be part of it. So thank you again for watching the Masonic Roundtable and for listening. And we look forward to hearing your comments about what you think of Amity and what you think of the future of this digital world that we're embracing. I think it's so important for the growth of our fraternity that we realize that we can't be driving fast with the emergency brake on. Put that emergency brake off and let it rip. Good night, brothers.
Very cool. Jason Richards.
Hey, Michael and Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on. This has been an awesome episode. So we really appreciate learning all about what you guys do. Thanks for nerding out on on Red Mine and all that sort of stuff with us tonight. I know John quite enjoyed the Alexa integration, and it worked. Which is awesome because live demos never work. John and I are going to be up at Ocean Lodge number 81, hanging out with folks on Thursday, October 11th. So come on out if you're in Spring Lake, New Jersey, because it's going to be a lot of fun. We're each doing our own separate presentations as part of Lodge, so it's going to be a good time. And that's all I've got for shameless plugs and final remarks. John, back to you.
Very cool. All right, Jeremy and Michael, just final question for you guys, because you're there, you're in it to win it. You see the application of technology to enhance the fraternal experience. Where are we going? Where's the future of Freemasonry as far regards to technology? Looks like we're pointing over to Michael.
Well,
I feel like this should be its own episode, John.
Yeah, that's a
You're not
difficult
kidding.
one. Exactly. We're closing with that. You know, the sky's the limit. You know, only as much as we're willing to receive, and that's what it really all comes down to. And how, you know, long time goes, and people are receptive to it. You know, I believe that eventually, you know, they'll have no choice because everybody who's growing up now uses technology. So, you know, we are going that way. What happens to the craft in general, you know, with the growth and people, new membership, you know, who knows? That we could have definitely a couple shows, you know, regarding that discussion. But you know, I want to thank you guys so much for having us here. You know, all of your input all along, really just the emotion that, you know, that was sticking up for what you guys believe in and what we've been doing is just unheard of. And I have to tell you, it has literally carried me like angel's wings. So thank you very much, and we appreciate it.
You know, John, I'll say, for me, the future is a pro and a con, right? The con is here we are talking about, you know, a phone and how it's going to change how we interact with each other. And the fact of the matter is it's never going to be your sixth point of fellowship, right? But my hope is that we can leverage this technology and say, you know what, I never knew that there was a Mason that worked 10 floors up from me in the same building, and find out ways to connect with people that will change our lives. Because what Masonry really is people interacting personally with each other. And that is important, and we want to help create that. So as Michael said, you know, thank you guys for your support. It's really been humbling, and we really appreciate it. Something like Amity is really successful. You know, I used the word crowdsourcing earlier. So my shameless plug is we're most successful when we're getting the most information to bring together and help share with everyone else. So for those of you who are out there listening, check out the app. If you like it, tell us. If you don't like it, please tell us. But, you know, really, if you do, tell other folks about it, because the more folks that use a tool like this, the better it gets and the more correct it gets. And our goal is, as Michael said earlier, you know, we're not the authority. We're just helping everybody communicate the best information. And the more that we can share, the better we're doing our job. So thank you all. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us, and you know, let us know how we can help you.
Very cool. Thanks again, guys. This has been great. I've learned a lot, and I think you guys are certainly welcome back on the show anytime to talk about the future of the fraternity. Michael, do you have something else you wanted to say before we wrap things up?
Travel safely.
Tagline in. Good for you. Hashtag branding. All right. Great show, guys. We'll see you all next week. Thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.